If you haven't seen many videos from me, it's because I've been busy doing something else, and it's this. This is it. This is the Indie Game Cost Calculator, and what it helps you do is two things. There's a service-based calculator and there's a game development budget calculator. So the service calculator allows you to create projects and put your team in, and then add profit margins and see how much a project's going to cost, and then you can do your split for milestones on here. And then if you want to, you can export that as a PDF. That will give you a breakdown of the costs for that project. Now here's the really cool one. This is the game development budget calculator. And essentially I made this because I'm pitching my own project to publishers and I wanted to make sure that I put the right amount in for my funding. And it allows you to think about things in games that as an indie you're probably not thinking about, would maybe underscope your project, and then if you got the funding you'd find out you had funding gaps later on. So we don't want that to happen, so I made this calculator so that we can get better numbers, and it's as universal as it could possibly make it. So at the top you've got your currency that you can choose. So if you want to pitch in dollars, you can pitch in dollars, or you can pitch in pounds or euros, or you can drop down, there's a whole load of more currencies here. And then you can choose how long your project is. You can then switch over if you have monthly or annual. Then you can put in all your salaries for your team. You can also delete things, you can add things. It's so versatile for how you want to build your team. And then you have your additional budget. So this is just any extra things you need to think about. That might be like a lump sum. This is a real basic overview of doing a budget. So it's as much as you can think of, so you can just put a lump sum in there so that you can cover it for your project. And then we get down to software, so you can start adding all your software. You can do this by month or by annual. And then you have compliance and legal, so this is a lot of stuff that we forget to think about when we are putting a games budget together. So here's a couple of examples that are already in here, but you can delete things because public liability and product liability are usually wrapped in together, so you don't need two separate lines for that one. And trademarks, because that's so important when you're looking at game names. Don't just choose a game name, just go out there and do some research before you end up with the same game as something else online, or even the same as a very public trademark that you didn't realise was out there and that you could get sued with. So it's something to think about that doesn't get thought about when we make products and we're like going out as indies. And then we've got at the bottom this risk buffer that allows you to set a risk buffer, so you've got contingency on your project. That will give you an overall cost of what you're going to pitch. And then the really cool thing that you can start thinking about is this little button at the bottom, which is putting in your RRP for your game. So what this does is a very quick breakdown, and essentially for Steam, because I'm thinking Steam more, but it allows you to see the costs that you're putting in. It breaks it down after platform royalties, it breaks it down after your net unit cost, net unit, and then it gives you your break-even sales. And then you have like a little breakdown of projections of how many units you'd need to sell to be able to make your money back on this budget up here. And it's also, this burn rate now gives you a burn rate of your entire team and all of your assets. So that's 7 team members. That should include everything from your software, your compliance, a risk buffer to make sure that your burn rate is correct. That's the whole thing. And then you can, at the moment, you can get a whole slideshow out of this. So if I click this button, you'll be able to see a whole slideshow. And I don't have this on my computer, but you can see it. There you go. And this other button here that allows you to have a spreadsheet. So it just breaks down all your costs in a spreadsheet, and then you can go away and play with that to your heart's content. So you don't have to stay on the calculator and just keep working things out on this. You can actually go away and put your financials together, put your pitch deck together, and then have somewhat more realistic numbers. I'd still check them and I'd still make sure that like you've thought about everything else that goes along with it, but this is a fairly accurate calculator for looking at costs fairly quickly for your projects. You can get an idea of what you're pitching for. What I really like about this revenue projections feature is that whilst it's only a simple revenue projection, it helps you to start thinking about your marketing plan. So if you know your break-even units from your net unit price is going to be 8,000 units, then you're going to look at your pipeline for your marketing plan and actually think a bit bigger to hopefully get those on launch. Obviously sell more units than that so that you can actually make a profit. What I didn't talk about was this little button here, which gives you an idea of a publisher split. So it's not to be used within a pitch or anything, it's just to give you an idea of like what a split would look like and what your net unit price would be after that split with a publisher. It tries to give you as accurate as possible idea of a number, but obviously take that with a pinch of salt as well, as it's only a quick calculation. So that's the free calculator. I've currently been working on something far more complex than this, which gives you higher level detail on how you manage your team and throughout your project, so that you can have a look at exactly where funding gaps would happen. So I'm really excited about that. We're still building it. We've still got so much more to put into that, but this new calculator that we're building, which is far more complex, will help anyone from indie up to AAA. I'm going back to game content now, but if you want to hear more about the calculator, let me know.